Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. Sitting here Sunday morning, Dabo Swinney, the Clemson Tigers, punching their ticket to the college football playoffs, ACC champions, and the Clemson fans who've been rocking with the fellas for the last couple of months know I, at times, have been very critical of this Clemson football team. And did they play their best football on Sunday night against SMU? No, absolutely not. But they made plays to win this football game, and that's what winning teams do. I want to give two massive shout outs. One, Nolan Hauser, a true freshman, goes out there, winks to his sideline with a smile before kicking a game-winning 50-plus yard field goal. I wish I had the confidence of that 18-year-old kid. And then, Dill, secondly, how about this shout out, Adam Randall? Look, Adam Randall's not having the season he probably would have wanted at the wide receiver spot. Comes in, massive kick return to give them the chance to win that football game in regulation. Culture, man. That's Dabo Swinney culture. And that Clemson offense in the first half was a thing of beauty. Dabo Swinney said it at the half. That was the best half of football Clemson has played all year. And he even said going into half, like, our problem is we haven't played good football for four quarters very often. And I don't think they played their best in the second half. It's kind of frustrating because I feel like Coach Garrett Riley just parked the bus a little bit in that second half and gave SMU a lot of chances on the offensive side of the football. And this Clemson defense, for most of the night, I thought did a very good job. But when you give that SMU offense and Rhett Lashley and all of those SMU playmakers that many opportunities, they're going to start getting it going. And that's kind of what you saw. It was probably closer than you wanted it to after coming out of half. Win's a win. College football playoffs, fired up to get into this one. Now, before we do, and as always, to the Clemson fans, y'all been rocking with the fellas for a very long time. There was a point in the season where, I was kind of buying into this Clemson team. And then I was like, you get to the Louisville Pitt game, and I was like, I don't know about this Clemson. It's been a wild ride, and y'all been here for the last couple of months, so we appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. Dill, I'll give you the T-box here. I think you got to have two different conversations. One, what did we see that we liked from Clemson? Now we're going to the college football playoffs. What do we got to clean up if we want to be dangerous in the college football playoffs? What you got for us?
I mean, the defense is great. I think you look at what the offense needs to do. I think you said it. Like, the fact that they go into a shell almost ever is kind of surprising because one thing Cade stopped doing is he stopped turning the ball over. So I don't know that they need to be as protective of him when they get into those like close games. Because obviously, I get you want to be able to try to salt that game away. But really, what was working for the most part was them pushing the ball down the field into that intermediate range, into that deeper range of the field a little bit. That stuff was really effective. And when they went to the run game and kind of the short screen, quick pass game, if you will, in that second half, their offense did stall out a little bit. I think you look at the way Cade's playing, I don't think you need to like baby him like the way they probably were.
Cade in their first half, and that's what's I think fun if you're a Clemson fan is you're starting to see this kid take the next step. Is it always as consistent as you want? No. He's clearly a better football player than he was in 2023. And that first half against SMU, that's some of the best football that we've seen Cade Klubnik play for the Clemson Tigers. I'll say this, Brian Wesco, we said it when he was kind of coming on. You go back to the App State game in the early portions of the season, then he deals with the injury. Brian Wesco fundamentally changes this Clemson offense. Having a dynamic playmaker that can access the deeper portions of the football field was something Clemson just didn't have consistently in 2023. That kid's going to be special. And there are some things you want to see him clean up, probably more from a consistency standpoint. That speed, length, and movement skills, that combination of it all, like that kid's going to be special, along with TJ Moore. Is more of just a Brian Wesco night for Clemson on Saturday. Disappointing part, we kind of talked about some of the positives on offense. They got to figure out a way to run the football better. And Dill, I'll just say this: yes, that SMU defense, worth noting, is a top 5 rushing defense in the league. And that's one thing. Shout out to Rhett Lashley and SMU. Like, they hit the transfer portal, and the biggest thing and the biggest difference you see when a team like SMU goes from the G5 level to the Power 4 level, the biggest thing they struggle with is line of scrimmage play, just not having power 4 caliber guys. They have that on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That being said, Phil Maffa doesn't look right. He that's not the Phil Maffa we saw in 2023. That's not the Phil Maffa we saw early in 2024. It's like a shoulder injury, but he also just looks a little, worn down. And so if you're Clemson, if you want to make a run of the college football playoffs and be a dangerous team, I think you feel really good that Cade can give you some of that quarterback play to do so. You got to find a way to run the football a little bit more effectively
Because
because
they were
that's
doing it okay in the first half. I thought for the most part, like, again, were they being explosive? No, but like they haven't really been a particularly explosive rushing attack for the bulk of the year. But they were keeping themselves out of second and long and third and long. I mean, Phil Moff was giving them negative plays on the rushing attack. He wasn't grinding the yards out the way he has to. Like
yeah.
that running back spot, I thought Cade Klubnik was arguably the best ball carrier on the field for Clemson yesterday, and that just can't be the case. Like Clemson's too good of a program to not have a serviceable running back. And when Justice Haynes went out and Phil Maffa just not really looking himself, it didn't feel like they kind of had that.
Yeah, Jay Haynes showed a little bit of juice, and then obviously that knee injury did not look very good on that kickoff return. I'm happy to see them lean into K's legs. We've like talked about that throughout, even going back to 2023. Like this kid's a really good athlete. Use his legs. They're having some success doing that. But I'm kind of with you. You got to find some sort of consistency in something. And I'm not totally excited. I'm not just blaming Phil Maffa because the offensive line on some of those counter plays where they like to pull the guard and tackle to the play side, they're giving up a lot of penetration on the backside. And that's not really facilitating Phil Maffa running his best either because he's a running back that wants to get that big body moving downhill. And when he's having to change direction in the backfield, that's not really how you want Phil Maffa to run.
Yeah, there were some bad reps from the O-line for sure, but there's going to be that in the football game. Like they also, I thought by and large, are playing pretty well. Their running backs just didn't ever max. I mean, they like, okay, if they had 3 yards, they got 3 yards, but they never did any better than that. You need your running backs to do better than kind of what the offensive line gives you in a couple situations. It just didn't feel like that was happening.
Yeah, the difference making at the running back spot is just not what we're used to seeing from this Clemson team. Garrett Riley, great first half. I thought he was dying. I told you that multiple times. When Garrett Riley is in his bag, calling these plays, and then the second half he got out of his bag, lost his bag, threw it away, and just this Clemson offense couldn't really figure it out consistently. What got them into trouble is they just weren't staying on the football field. And then this SMU team, the SMU should be in the playoffs, man. I was skeptical of it pretty much all year. And I said, if it looks ugly against Clemson, they shouldn't be in the playoffs. That's not the case. Even in the first half, they made some really bad decisions, but they were playing just fine. Kevin Jennings, man, he's an absolute stud. And Rhett Lashley knows how to run an offense, and that defense is no joke. Let's switch over to the defensive side of the football. Player of the game, TJ Parker. Dude's an absolute monster. Secondly, and what I think is really interesting, and I give Dabo Swinney and Wes Goodwin a lot of credit. Their base defense right now is 4-3. Like they're just running 3 linebackers, which you don't see a lot of college football teams do anymore. It's pretty much that base defense is with the nickel. I think for 2 reasons. One, you kind of simplify it a little bit and say who are some of our best players on the defensive side of the football. Like Derek Carter, Wade Woodaz, and now Sammy Brown have emerged as some of your best players on this football team. So get them on the field. Like don't overthink it. Don't rotate with 2. Just get them all on the field at the same time. Secondly, you can kind of do that even against an SMU team that wants to spread you out. That was one of my bigger question marks was, were they going to go to the 3 linebacker sets against a team like SMU that wants to spread you out? You can do that when you have Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz, and Sammy Brown. And those are 3 freaky athletes at the linebacker spot. So if you're worried about coverage ability and playing in space, you don't really have to be with those 3 linebackers. I thought this Clemson defense in the box score might not necessarily reflect it. 31 points, 458 yards. I thought they played a pretty dang good, definitely first half of football, but largely I thought they played pretty dang well for 4 quarters.
No, because honestly, the way Clemson's offense started to play in the second half, that game could have gotten way out of hand.
Yeah, agreed.
Like SMU could have really just run it up and down on them. I mean, they were still getting stops. Again, Clemson's offense can't not be on the field for any length of time. Like that's just a recipe for disaster, especially when you're playing that tempo. But I thought the defense for the most part was good. And honestly, the plays SMU are making, I mean, good plays. Their wide receivers making good contested catches, like plays that like if they're going to make those really, really consistently, they're going to be tough to stop. So obviously in the second half, they did get to some of those. And probably the only thing about the second half is they didn't create as many negative plays. It didn't feel like their defensive line, I thought, was really dominant in the first half. And then, it was still good and they were making plays for sure, but they weren't dominating like they were dominating in the first half. So it's probably the one thing I'd look at and be like, well, is that rotating more players in? I thought, again, their depth pieces play well. I thought Lawson played good. I think Hoffler's a good player, so they have the depth pieces to do it. But that was probably the only thing.
I thought they got a little worn down because of the fact that one, SMU was starting to run with some real pace, and then secondly, you're running against an offense that plays with a lot of pace, and then your offense is struggling to stay on the football field. You saw them get a little bit worn down, especially on that defensive line. And what SMU was doing a really good job of was, hey, when we get that first down, we're not going to sub. We're going to keep that defensive lineman on the defensive line on the football field. That gave them some problems too. And there is that element of it. It's hard to sometimes you just got to give a golf clap to the offense. Like you can play good defense, and there's no good defense for a perfect throw and perfect catch. And there were times in that football game where Kevin Jennings just made some really good throws, and these pass catchers went up and made some really good plays. I did think that Clemson did on aggregate, a pretty good job with Kevin Jennings, and that was a massive storyline considering what happened against South Carolina a week ago with Lenore Sellers. That was a nice part to see as well. Dill, it was not pretty for 4 quarters. It was really pretty for a first half. Clemson figures out a way to win. This is a team that we've seen Clemson at times be a very dangerous team in the country. And then we've seen them at times just not play their best football. Can this team find their – and to me, if you're Dabo Swinney and Clemson, you're playing with house money, baby. Like this is a team that it probably doesn't all much deserve to be in the college football playoffs from the 12 weeks we just saw, but this is the era of college football. Get yourself into the playoffs, go get hot. And this is a team, like I'd say this about Clemson. There are some teams that we're going to see in the college football playoffs that I look and just at, look, I just don't know how hot they can get. Clemson's the team that can get hot and be dangerous in the playoffs. We'll see if they play their best football. I'm happy they're in it. It's been a fun year talking this team, and we get to talk them a little bit more.
It is a fun team because you are right. They have top-end players at the places you need top-end players, and if Wesco plays like an elite playmaker on the boundary, they can be a bit of a problem because, again, I still think that defense, when it's on and they're fully healthy, which they're starting to get fully healthy, they're really dominant because they have 2 defensive linemen in Peter Woods and TJ Parker who are just absolute freaks.
Also, can we – Ashton Hampton, he does it every – Dabo Swinney does it every year. Like these low 3-star defensive backs that, like – and many of y'all know I cover the recruiting trail pretty closely. He's like, I don't know. He'd probably be a guy that you stash away for a couple of years. He'll be a good football player. Like they come out and play awesome as true freshmen. Like this is back-to-back years of that. The staff's really good at evaluating defensive backs. We'll get out of here on that. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.